Hi there, in this screencast I'm going to get my sprites moving across the screen when the game is running by detecting key presses in the act method of each the source code of each sprite. So I'm going to go to CavemanYellow and double click and open his code, and I'm going to look and I see that I have an act method for the class. That means whenever I create an object of that class, automatically his or her or its act method starts to be executed 50 times a second. So this is where I'm going to detect key presses. So I'm going to have an if statement that's going to say if Greenfoot dot is key down, and then let me do the M key. Then I'm going to say set location, and I like using set location instead of the move method because the move method moves the sprite relative to what his direction is, and that may affect what his image should be. So to keep it simple, I like to just reposition the sprite myself rather than calling the move method, and you do that by calling the set location method. So I'm going to say set location, and then I'm going to say get x plus 5 and get y. So get x plus 5 means his x position will be 5 more than what it was before, and his y coordinate is really going to stay the same because he's not moving up or down. Okay, so let me try it. I'm going to run it, and when I press M, the yellow guy should go across the screen. He does, but the problem is this is a button bashing game, and it's not a test of who can hold down a key the longest time. It's who can press and release the key the most frequently. So I need to make it so that the caveman's only gonna move a fixed distance across the screen for each time there's a key press, and then the user has to release the key before being able to move the character or the sprite again. So I'm going to do this by a little trick where I make a boolean variable for the actor, the sprite, that is going to be called canMove, and originally it's going to be false. I mean true. Because when the character is created, you're going to assume that he can move. So now I'm going to say if Greenfoot.isKeyDown and canMove, so in other words, if canMove is true, then move the sprite and then set canMove, assign it a value of false. Okay, well, once I do this, the sprite will never be able to move again because I never set canMove back to true. It's going to continue to be false, so these two lines of code will not execute because I have, even if the M key is down, I would have true and false. That results in false, so this does not execute. So what I need to do is to check to see if they've released the key. So if I say if not Greenfoot.isKeyDown M, then I'm going to set canMove back to being true. So that once the very first time that Greenfoot detects that the M key is up, well, that means it's kind of loaded itself and is all ready to go for the next time they press it. They're allowed to press it the very first time the act method executes. When they've pressed it, sets it to false and moves them. If they continue to hold the key every time the act method executes, they're going to it's not going to move the sprite because this whole statement will be false. So this is kind of a little trick that should be able to get your sprite to move a fixed number of pixels per key press. Now, if I'm debugging my game, I may not want necessarily my sprite to only move 5 pixels per time. So I'm going to actually make a variable, an instance variable up here that's going to be called pixels to move per key press. And I'm going to set that equal to 5. Okay, so now down here I'm going to say, instead of +5, I'm going to say pixels to move per key press. And now when I'm debugging my game and I want to set that to be a very high value, so somebody wins the game by pressing the key down just a few times rather than 600 times or 200 times, all I need to do is go up here and change this value. But let's see if it's the whole thing is going to be working. Alright, so here we go. Run. Sure enough, I have to continue to press the key and release it before the caveman will move again. Alright, and let me just show you. I'm going to change pixels to move to 100. And now when I test, he moves 100 pixels at a time, which would make my game much easier to debug because we could have somebody win in only 5 key presses instead of, say, 200. Okay, so now the last thing I want to do is I'm pretty much going to have the duplicate, the exact same code in the other class. Now, I could really have gotten by with just making a single caveman class, but then I'd have to change the image and there'd be a few other things that would vary. So it's really easy, even though there's going to be repetition of code, just to have 2 different classes. So I'm going to just copy and paste the code from CavemanYellow to CavemanRed, and I just need to change the key that is pressed to move the other guy. I'm going to change it from Z or M to Z, and now when I run the game, I have my caveman racing across the screen a fixed number of pixels. Okay, so that's this screencast, and next we'll move on to how to make a game state variable.